Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Roman America podcast. It's been a while since I've released an episode, really for no other reason other than I've just been lazy as fuck for the past week. But basically, yeah, we're back for another episode, and a lot of shit's happened since I recorded my last episode, which, that's kind of on me again. That's my bad, but yeah, a lot of shit's happened in this last week. So, for example, just to give a rundown, Donald Trump, President Trump, has said a lot of shit over the last week. He says that a ceasefire, an official ceasefire, went into effect, a 10-day ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, and by Lebanon he means Hezbollah. He's talked about how essentially they're continuing the negotiations, or no, he said he declared once again for like the 5 millionth time, he said that the war with Iran is officially over and that the Strait of Hormuz is open, which did not work out because literally like a few hours after that the strait closed again and all the ships that were approaching the strait had to turn back around, and stuff like that. And then of course, I'm not sure if this happened when my last episode was going on, but I did talk, I think maybe I mentioned it, that Trump attacked Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, and Alex Jones. I'm not really going to talk about that one because it's kind of old news now, but, what else is new? I'm not really too surprised that he went after them, in all honesty. And then his latest attack, of course, came on Sunday night, right as I was going to bed, which was he attacked the Pope. He attacked the Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV, calling him a liberal, saying he's too woke, and he said that I like his brother Louis better. His brother Louis is MAGA, which I don't really know if that's true, but even if it was, honestly, who gives a shit? But even still, I don't really know all of his clear positions or whatever, but I really do find it funny how he says that, Pope Leo is woke and that he's liberal and all that stuff, which is funny because if Trump were Pope, he'd be the most liberal Pope to ever exist, given his, given the church's stances on, abortion, gay marriage, IVF, divorce, any of that stuff. And so, he tried to frame it as this was about open borders, which, the Pope has made, the Holy Father's made some comments about immigration that, I'm not too crazy about, honestly, but, I wouldn't call him a radical on abortion, or not abortion, immigration, sorry. I wouldn't call him a radical on immigration. I'd call him more of a moderate. You know what I mean? I really do think that, and even still, the church's position doesn't fully align with the left-right political spectrum, the left-right paradigm. So, but that's a whole nother subject to get into. But really, this is about war. This is about the fact that the Holy Father was calling for peace amid the Iran war. Saying like, for example, blessed are the peacemakers, one of the most well-known verses in the Bible, especially with regards to like the subject of war and peace. And so that's really what it was about. And honestly, I really don't know how any Catholics can continue supporting Donald Trump, following his comments there. And honestly, that's the thing. If this is, if Trump is going to make me pick sides in this, hey, do I stand with the Pope or the president? I'm going to pick the Pope. Come on. I'm not that, you know what I mean? Like, I'm loyal to my church. And I think a lot of people need to hear that. And they need to recognize that you shouldn't put your country before God. I mean, you can put your country before a lot of things, for sure. If you want to call yourself a patriot, say that you're patriotic, You can put your country before a lot of things, but you cannot put it before God. That is definitely a line that should not be crossed. And so, essentially, again, this whole thing boils down to Trump's foreign policy and the foreign policy, especially in regards to the Middle East and Iran. And the Pope simply calling for peace while not explicitly naming any policy positions, simply coming at it from a moral point of view, a moral perspective. I really don't understand why Trump would think that would be a slam dunk to take a shot at the Holy Father. It really does not bode well for his image. And honestly, it's another thing that's dividing his voter base. Because there are some Catholics who are saying, you know what, this is too far. I cannot in good conscience support our president anymore. And then there's some, of course, that are continuing to dick ride him into the sunset. People like Jack Posobiec and, stuff like that. Who, by the way, blocked me on Twitter. I don't know if any of you've been paying attention to my Twitter account, but I did make a post about it. He literally 5 minutes after I commented on one of his posts, he literally blocked me. So much for that, so much for calling out liberal snowflakes when apparently you're one yourself. But anyways, it's not like I was a massive Trump supporter up until this point. I mean, I pretty much renounced my support last June during the 12-day war. But this, of course, if that didn't cross the line, this certainly should have, if you claim to be a faithful American Catholic. And so, yeah, any Catholics who were Trump supporters really need to rethink their view on the president. Because right now, the president is not putting out a good image for anyone. I mean, and then of course, this was of course the bigger story, but as everybody saw, Trump also posted that AI image of himself, depicting himself, what appeared to be at least, depicting himself as Jesus Christ, the central figure of Christianity himself. And that is, and then of course he got a lot of pushback from that. He got a lot of pushback from that. And then, of course, Trump tried to walk it back by saying, oh, I was just portraying myself as a doctor or whatever, which, by the way, bullshit. You did not portray yourself as a doctor. Everybody could see of course, there was a, heavenly sky in the background, some, AI-looking angels in the background, which, by the way, one of them looked like a demon. So I don't know if that was done on purpose or if that was just AI messing it up. Either way, kind of looked a little demonic. But then there was also that. He was also in like a red and white garment robe, which, looked like something that, a first century Judean man would have worn. And then, of course, he had light coming out of his hands. So to say that you weren't portraying yourself as Jesus is, it's denying reality. It's denying something you did yourself. And everybody knows what you did. Everyone knows what you did. And the thing is, like everyone said, it's not just controversial. If you're a devout Christian, you would see that as blasphemous, which is exactly how I saw it. I saw that as blasphemy. And because we know that Trump is not Jesus. We know he's no saint. We know he's a massive sinner. I mean, we're all sinners, but he especially is a massive sinner. And so, and by the way, I'm in my car, so I was just going over bumps in the road. That's why there's this noise in the background. But anyways, we all saw that the image was clearly blasphemous. And Trump should have just owned it. He should have just apologized to everybody and said, you know what? I didn't know it was going to offend so many people. I messed up. Whatever. And he did delete the image. I guess that's about as close to an apology as he'll ever get. But he should have issued a statement along with that. Really should have issued a statement along with that. So I really do not, in all honesty, I really do not see how American Catholics, especially Catholic conservatives, can possibly bend over backwards to continue to support this man. I really just don't, honestly. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that have happened in the last week. And it really isn't, really not the most fun thing, honestly, to see him making those comments about the Holy Father and posting that image. And so, I don't know. It's hard to put into words, I guess. Because it gives me a very negative, very uncomfortable feeling. But intuitively, it gives me, of course, it all gives us the same feeling. It all gives us, the same feeling, which is that this was blasphemous and controversial and divisive. I mean, Trump himself is already divisive, but this, of course, is even more divisive, not just on a political level, but also on a more moral and religious level, which is a whole nother level of divisiveness in and of itself. And so, I guess the thing to think about, the thing to reflect, is that, for people who, for people who've been trying to defend the president throughout this entire year to year and a half that he's been in office, you really got to rethink things through. I mean, bombing Iran for the sake of Israel, not disclosing or releasing the Epstein files, making you look like you're covering up for pedophilia and child abuse, and then, of course, doing another war with Iran, and, of course, completely failing on immigration and mass deportations. I really just don't see a way around it. So, yeah, if you're truly America first, then, you got to make sure that you're off the Trump train. And if you aren't off of it by now, you got to get off of it, because this thing is a sinking ship. This whole movement, Trumpism, MAGA, whatever you want to call it, this thing is a sinking ship. And yeah, some people shouldn't have gotten on it to begin with, but those who were on it need to get off of it. And, what was it, like 10 months ago? I was one of them. And so, I guess to wrap it up is that this is the ultimate test to determine where your morals lie, where your convictions lie, what you stand for, who you'll stand up for. This is not a trivial matter. This is about the fight for the soul of our nation. And if Trump isn't willing to fight for us, well, then we need to find somebody else. And we need to find someone else awfully quick. So, yeah, I guess those are just my thoughts, I guess, on, what's been going on with Iran and with Trump's comments about, podcasters and the Holy Father and all that stuff. And so, yeah, we're gonna, we're gonna see just how much more of this we can take. We're gonna see how far this will really go. But, yeah, I really do hope that this doesn't continue and eventually just eventually Trump backs off and cools down and lays off attacking people that helped him get elected. So yeah, that's my rant. That's my ramble. So yeah, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, watch this on YouTube and Rumble and, anywhere else I put this podcast on. And, stay tuned for the next episode, which, should release tomorrow, if I'm not lazy enough. So, point is, next episode will come out sooner rather than later. So, I will see you then, and catch you guys later.